people fall in love with technology instead of falling in love with the problem that they're trying to solve. They haven't done the foundational work. They haven't asked, what is the most critical business outcome we need to drive right now? Take a deep breath and put the tools down. Forget the tech for a moment. Grab a whiteboard. Just map out all the potential opportunities where AI could help. If you have only a top-down approach, so you get what I call a bridge to nowhere. So leadership gets excited, they buy a platform, they set a mandate, everyone must use this AI tool. Prompting is simply the art of asking good questions. Learning how to communicate effectively with these super powerful but very, very literal assistants. It's not really about being replaced. It's an opportunity, really, to elevate ourselves, to improve our skills, to be a strategist that leverages AI as a primary tool. Start by really blocking a 15-minute slot with your team. Call it like quick brainstorming. All I need to do is ask this one simple question. If you had a magic wand and you could eliminate a single most repetitive, annoying, or frustrating task from your work week, what would it be? And then just shut up and listen.
Welcome to FlowMax Podcast, and I'm here with Sharon, and we're going to talk about go-to-market strategy using AI and AI adaptation. So, Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to have you. So Sharon, I wanted to introduce you to our audience, and we wanted to see how you got into the AI space. Maybe you can walk us through a little bit of what is that journey and where were you before and how come you decided to be in the AI world.
Right. And yeah, what a journey it's been. So in the last, I want to say 13 years or so, I've been working in different startups and scale-ups in the world of customer success and post-sales in different roles, from implementation to support to customer success and various management roles. And I've always been a process nerd. I've always found ways to make processes better, to make people more productive and happier with their jobs. And I thrive in environments where I get to do that. And about, I want to say a year ago, maybe a little more, I just got absolutely obsessed with AI. I started using AI tools, writing about them, talking to many go-to-market leaders about how they use them. And, fast forward, I started leading workshops for customer success and different go-to-market teams about using AI, getting the best out of AI, which also led me to my current kind of consultancy gig where I help management teams with their AI strategy, while I am also heading a customers function in a small startup.
Wow, that's super exciting. I know that when you're obsessed about something, there's so many things to unpack. And that's what we're going to do in this podcast, right? We're going to be excited. I'm excited, and hopefully the audience will be excited too. So Sharon, if we're just going to jump into a little bit more about, I've been following a little bit of your work around AI and customer service. And there's one thing that had really stood up was really the mission to make AI safe, practical, and personal for teams. So I think that mindset is so needed right now because we're seeing this strange paradox in the market. So according to McKinsey and Gainsight, like 92% of the companies are increasing their AI budgets, but only 1% are actually feeling AI mature with that contest. And the gap is very wild. So if I were to ask you this straight up, like why do so many AI projects in customer success and go to market still fail despite an all investments and hype?
Wow, that's the $1,000,000 question, right? And it's something that I see really constantly. I've been talking to VPs and chief customer officers, and they all tell me, hey, listen, we've invested in so much money in these new tools, but then, nobody is really using them. Like you said, the data is backing this up. The budgets are really skyrocketing, but still, according to some studies, only 50 or something % of customer success teams implemented AI already. And only a fraction see themselves as AI mature. I think, and what I see is that the disconnect stems from almost always, it stems from a very simple and human mistake that people fall in love with technology instead of falling in love with the problem that they're trying to solve, right? And it's a classic kind of shiny new object syndrome. Someone sees a demo of a super cool tool that can automate a process or predict churn and they will buy it. But they haven't done the foundational work, right? They haven't asked, like, what is the most critical business outcome we need to drive right now? Is it reducing churn by 5%? Is it increasing expansion revenue by 10%? And I think without that strategic alignment, the AI tool becomes a solution that kind of looks for the problem, right? And the teams don't have the why and they don't know why they should use it. So they feel like it's just extra work and rather than being, something that helps them. And without preparing their people, management, and without creating a culture of curiosity and a safe space to experiment, the tool just, gathers dust, right? So simply put, I think they're just chasing the tech instead of chasing business value. And in my experience, that's a race you can never win.
Yeah, that's really true. That's definitely true. Like we're so fascinated, we're so being wowed, we're being convinced about how AI is so wonderful. But it goes back to the business need. Like, are we actually solving a business problem? And you're right. Like we are kind of forgetting what's the main reason why we started or why we're considering using AI in the first place, right? We're solving a business need, a business problem that's forgotten. And we're just fascinated with all the shiny object syndrome that you mentioned. So let's pretend I'm a founder of, or maybe I'm a go to market leader listening today. Where should I actually begin with AI adoption?
So, a very common starting point that I hear is that people are completely overwhelmed. And like you said, it feels like there's 1,000 tools out there, 1,000 different use cases, and it leads to this, what I call analysis paralysis, right? Where should I begin? And the first thing I always tell leaders I work with is to take a deep breath and put the tools down, right? Forget the tech for a moment. And instead, you want to grab a whiteboard or a virtual whiteboard and do a very simple exercise. Just map out all the potential opportunities where AI could help. We plot them into a simple 2x2 grid. On one axis, you have the potential business value and how much impact will this have? And on the other one, you have the complexity to implement. How hard or how risky is it going to be? And this simple act of mapping immediately brings clarity. You'll see a few things sitting in that beautiful top left quadrant, like high value, low complexity. And these are called quick wins. There's also a full AI design sprint workshop that I lead, but this is, just a great start. And when you see some quick wins sitting right there in front of you, maybe, you're just automating the first draft of a meeting summary. Maybe it's, taking support tickets and spotting trends. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to reinvent your entire go-to-market motion like overnight. So you start with finding that one small impactful use case that makes life easier. And then, you start there, you get that first win acknowledged, which brings momentum and confidence. And then you can create these internal champions, right, that already see value, and you can expand from there in a much easier way. So I believe that this gradual approach can really build momentum instead of, resistance and burnout.
Yeah, that's really key. And I'm kind of curious about, and also for the benefit of our audience, what does opportunity mapping like look like in practice? Like, and how do I avoid falling into the trap of tool first thinking? Like sometimes we're bound to go into, oh, I'm fascinated with this tool, I have to find out like how can I solve a business problem. But as you mentioned earlier, like the first thing to prioritize was actually to find the business need, the business problem to solve. This podcast may not be enough time for to give us a little bit of context, but just to in that context, like how would you convey the message?
So, very high level, right? A few places to start with opportunity mapping is, you take one department or one function, right? Because I'm sure that even a customer success group can have multiple functions, right? So you start with one, you map out their processes, right? Customer onboarding, renewal, expansion, different touch points, and all the different tasks that they have. And you can start identifying which ones are more repetitive and which ones are risky or requires a little bit more judgment. And you start seeing the ones that, have a higher toll on the team. And you can even workshop it together. You vote, you have your team vote for the tasks that are taking too much of their time. And then you can ask starting questions like, okay, I want to automate this. I prioritized something that I see that can bring me a lot of value. Now you can ask questions about complexity, like, do I have the data I need to make this automatic? Do I have all the systems in place that are connected? Can I do something simple, like create maybe an assistant instead of a full-on agent? So this is just, the tip of the iceberg where you can start to find these opportunities that you want to invest in. You can do this exercise with multiple processes. And then you have this grid of, okay, this is where I can have some quick wins. This is a more complex project. And this is an incremental one that I can start small and then build over time. And another thing that I recommend is to start with the readily available tools, because it's my take is that companies don't even tap into 10% of the value that they can get from their enterprise license, right? Like GPT, Gemini, Copilot, and so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm also curious about that because, like most of businesses, they have their own. You could probably use the word existing set of tools or tool stack, right? And some of it could be a little bit of resisting in terms of adapting a new tool. Would your framework work as well in terms of mapping the opportunities, or is it just something that is more about like really setting up new set of tools?
So I think maybe this is a good time to talk about, the bigger approach of AI adoption, tackling it bottom up and top down, right? So there are some great success stories of companies out there who really got to lead very successful adoption. You can take Zapier as a great example, and it's the knowledge is public. They got to, I think, 89% of AI adoption in their entire company in less than 2 years. And something that they did great is they looked at AI adoption in, both top down, top priority thing and a bottom up thing that should coexist. And this is so critical because when AI adoption fails, it's usually because one of these two sides is missing. Think of it as like a bridge that a company is trying to build, okay? And what happens when you have only one is this. If you have only a top-down approach, so you get what I call a bridge to nowhere. So leadership gets excited. They buy a platform. They set a mandate. Everyone must use this AI tool. But then the frontline teams, the CSMs, the account executives, they have no say. They don't really see how it fits to their workflow. It feels kind of forced, right? And they resent it. Or maybe they're scared that it will replace them. It happens a lot also. So it becomes kind of a checkbox exercise instead of like genuine adoption. And this is, coming from the top. They invest in AI. They made this decision. They allocated the budget. And on the other hand, if you only have a bottom-up approach, so you have people working with AI from the bottom, you get kind of a Wild West situation. So you have a few super users, people who are passionate about AI, and they're experimenting with free tools. They're building cool little automations for themselves. And maybe they're getting real results, right? But it's isolated. It's not scalable. And you know what? It's even not secure because they don't know how to use to protect your data, right? And they're amazing insights from the field. They never make it to the top, and they don't get the backup and the influence in the company strategy. So this dual approach is about building that bridge. And what it looks like in practice is that top-down leadership provides a vision. Okay, they say our goal this year is to increase NR by 10%. And we believe AI is the key. And they allocate the budget. They form a steering committee. They create clear security guidelines, right? Data security and tool usage. So there is a safe space to experiment in. And they're providing the strategic why to everyone. And in the meantime, from the bottom up, it's about enablement and empowerment. It's giving your team the psychological kind of safety to experiment, running workshops, teaching the team prompt engineering, creating spaces for them to share success stories or AI questions like a Slack channel or a monthly meeting, hackathons, and they can share what they've discovered. Oh, hey, I found a prompt that creates amazing follow-up emails, or I built a workflow that saves me an hour a week. Okay, amazing. Share it. Maybe you win something for it, right? So when you have both, that's where the real magic happens. The best bottom-up ideas get recognized and validated, and they get scaled by the top-down strategy. So I think this is the way it works great.
That's amazing. That's amazing. To really painting the picture for me and the audience is really very clear, and it looks exciting if that's actually the scenario, right? And I know that sometimes top down and bottom up sometimes may be misunderstood, and I just wanted to confirm, if you say top down and bottom up, are you talking about the hierarchy of a company? Like top down is like from the leader, from the top, the leader, the CEO, the founder, to down, and then bottom up means the rank and file, the entry employees going up.
Exactly. And they meet in the middle. So the strategy comes from the top, from leadership, and the practices and the needs and the pain points, they come from the bottom, and then it's backed up in both ways.
All right. Well, great for confirming that, because sometimes these terms are very corporate, and we want to make sure that our audience would understand what we're talking about with
Yeah,
so
you're
many
right.
jargons and all that, right? So if you're talking about now you have the top down and the bottom up adaptation, but what about if we're talking about like the mindsets, the habits, or systems required on both levels to make AI stick? Because sometimes we're excited at the beginning, and that momentum goes down, and sometimes there's no mood today, or those scenarios will be coming out. So what are the mindsets that we need for us to be able to stick into this implementation?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is valid for any change management, right? So leadership needs to be in a mindset where, change is not easy and you can't ignore the emotional side of it, right? So you need to provide all the support system for the employees to adjust to this change. It will be easier for some, it will be harder for others. You need to make sure that everyone kind of that everyone is set up for success in that sense. And we'll talk about, I think, different skills that I recommend that employees start to invest in for themselves. But I think in terms of mindset, people need to be open to learning new things, because this is the reality now. It doesn't matter what you do, by the way, if you're in go-to-market in a corporate, or if you are doing, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, right? Everything is changing around us. So being open to change, being open to learning new things, this is something that will help us stay ahead in the evolving market today.
And just a side question, because as you know, even though we are painting a picture about top down and bottom up AI adaptation, but sometimes we can't avoid outliers, and there are outliers that are a little bit skeptical. They're not ready to adopt. They have their own opinions. How would you deal with those kind of mindset? Because I know that the easiest way to just deal and have a structured mindset habits, of course it's going to be implemented all around, but we have those outliers. So how would you deal with them? I'm just curious about what's your approach.
I think this is something that you can run into anywhere, right? Again,
Yes.
some people will have change resistance, and it can come from leadership as well. And sometimes the best way to, untangle this resistance is to, again, start small and start to show results, right? Maybe they're very skeptical. And I've heard this sentence like, oh, AI can't solve everything. AI makes you dumber. You don't think for yourself. But then when we do start small, even if it's not something for their department, even if it's for another department and they see that the results are starting to come, they'll want to join the ride, I think. And if they don't, that's a shame for them because they have to realize that they'll stay behind.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so beautiful. It's like just the introduction is just the warm up for a session. And let's go more about go to market engineering, like the future of teams. So you've introduced the idea of go to market engineering as a new hybrid role. What is that exactly, and why is it so important right now for us to adapt?
So I'm really glad you brought this up because I believe this is one of the most important new roles that are emerging this last year. And, many different companies are starting to adopt this role, even, OpenAI, they have go-to-market engineers. And I think the best way to describe this role is a hybrid, right? It's a person who has the mindset of, the go to market business thinking, realizing the needs of the company, of the revenue engines in the company, but they also have the know-how of working with different tech stack, with data, with processes. So it's a hard talent to find. I'm not saying it's an easy recruitment, but go-to-market engineering is just a natural revolution of the classic RevOps, purpose built for the age of AI. And in practice, what it means, this role of go-to-market engineering, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe a plumber or a translator of your AI strategy. So you've got your management, your leadership setting the vision, and you got the front line in the field with the ideas. So a go-to-market engineer is the one who kind of connects the pipes, right? They're the ones who actually operationalize the data, and they can ask critical questions like, okay, how can AI identify churn risks for all customers? So system thinking. I'm not solving for one customer, I'm solving for many. And what happens next? And how do we automatically create a task in our CRM and assign it to the right people and notify management? So they're the ones who build those workflows. They connect the data between different systems. They turn passive insights into, smart AI workflows. And I think these types of roles, whether you call it go-to-market engineer or you call it, give it any other name, is the future, because AI on its own, it doesn't do much, right? You need someone to be the central nervous system for the AI in this revenue engine of a company that really connects this AI brain into the hands and the feet of the organization and making sure that it actually works for the benefit of everyone. So yeah, this is something that's emerging, and people want to stay ahead and develop their own skills. So when the future of work changes, they can fit into similar roles.
Yes, and something interesting that you mentioned about like AI is something that could assist us in some way, right? Shape or form. It's like it's amplifying us as an expert in some areas. So a lot of people have this perception of like AI is a superpower, is a super pill, is a super like that's the one solution that we need, right? And I'm just kind of also catching that from you, and I also realized that this is something very critical because we have this expectation about AI, which is very high, and the critical thing of AI is the person using AI, right? So if you are, example, if you are an expert in creativity, if you're an expert in innovation, in leadership, in sales, in marketing, then you can use AI to amplify your expertise versus a person who is not expert but he or she uses AI. So it's very different to get the results in that context, right? So if we're going to jump into like the role bridging the gap, right? If we're going to talk about like how do you see the role bridging the gap between like customer service, there's ops, operations, there's this automation. We haven't even talked about, I know that your expertise lies in also in the customer service and ops. But maybe if you also have some opinions about sales and marketing department, like what's your take?
In the sense that how this role is bridging gaps. So
Yes.
I've seen different companies approaching AI roles in different ways. And one common theme that I see now, so specifically for go-to-market engineers, some people say that this is going to replace all of the go-to-market roles. I don't know if that's the case really, right? They say that they won't need any CSMs, they won't need any support, any sales, they only need go-to-market engineers. I don't know about that. I'm curious to see what will happen. But what I do see right now in the field is companies really creating different AI roles in these business functions in sales, marketing, and service. And normally, what I see around bridging this gap, and there are a few bridges to build, right? From management to field, from business to technical, right? So I see roles that are emerging from the business side of AI project manager or AI transformation specialist. And these are people that live in the function, in sales, in marketing, in customer success. And the role is to gather these AI needs, to surface them, to make sure that the team can pilot, and also to transfer the requirements and needs from successful pilots to more technical AI teams on the other side of the technical bridge, right? AI developers, people with more technical expertise, that when you have this dilemma of, oh, I need this solution, should I buy or should I build? Sometimes companies will lean toward building something because of data privacy. If they're a cybersecurity company or an HR company with with a lot of privacy concerns, they'll lean towards building something on their own. So they'll have these AI developers who are going to build this. But the AI developers, the technical side, they can't operate on their own without having this mediator, right? Someone who speaks AI, but also speaks business and knows the function inside out.
Yes, critical. That's very critical. And that would be a very great insight just for bridging the gap. You know that there's so much evolution, there's so much innovation that has been going on right now as we speak. That would be very critical also to kind of see how the role are bridging the gaps. And also our audience will also get to know like how could they manage if they're going to adopt with AI, right? So now we're going to go about like we're going to talk about prompting, right? Because prompting is something that is also one of the critical skills that I would probably consider to call. And you often say prompts are the new professional interface, right? And why is prompt engineering so important even for non-technical teams like customer success? Like what's your thoughts in these area?
Sure. So prompt engineering might sound very scary and technical or intimidating to non-technical people. And I think this is a huge misstep in how we talk about it. I tell teams normally to forget the word engineering, because in the heart, prompting is simply the art of asking good questions, right? It's about learning how to communicate effectively with these super powerful but very, very literal assistants, right? Because now everyone knows everything. Everyone has access to all the knowledge, right? So what sets you apart is the ability to pull the right set of knowledge, right, from these tools. But again, they're very, very literal. So think about it this way. If you hired a junior analyst, a student, a junior analyst, and what will happen if you just walked by their desk and say something like, give me customer insights, right? You wouldn't like the results probably, and they wouldn't understand what you want from them. So if you want to give them context, if you want good results, you'd go to them and say, hey, could you please review the last 3 months of support tickets of our top 10 enterprise accounts? And here is a list. Identify the 3 most common feature requests, right? And present them as bullet points so I can share them with our product team. Much better, right? So you probably like the results much better, and your assistant, your junior assistant, will not be scared of you. So that's basically prompt engineering in very, very high level. And a mistake that I see all the time is actually lazy prompting. a CSM or a salesperson would type, summarize this call. And then they get this very generic and unhelpful summary. And when someone who knows prompting approaches this, they can say, act as an expert customer success manager, review the following call transcript. Your goal is to identify customer sentiment, key business objectives that were mentioned, any potential expansion opportunities, format the outputs with 3 sections, sentiment, objectives, opportunities. And this is night and day, right? And for non-technical roles, this is not a technical skill. It's actually a communication skill. It should be our forte, right? And that's the key that will help us unlock the power that we have now, which is this AI knowledge at our fingertips. So turning it from a simple summarizer into a strategic partner that can really help you in anything you do.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I remembered like whenever you are in the line of customer service or sales or any communication in that matter, you are striving also to improve all the time, right? And the only way to do that is to track your calls or your meetings. And another use case that I see is very critical. And if you just know how to implement prompting very well, you'll be able to have your own kind of like your feedback coach so that you will be able to improve what if you have a call for customer service or it could be a sales call. Then definitely if you know how to prompt, you would get that, like constructive feedback for you to be able to improve. And that's just piece of the pie. That's just one piece of the pie, right? In terms of a use case. But then again, yes, as you said, it's true. It's very critical to know, and it's not rocket science. It's it's for anyone, right? It's for anyone to do and easy to learn. So beautiful. So Sarah, if we're gonna talk about like maybe you can walk us through like a real prompt or probably a framework you use. Maybe it could be personal or maybe the one that you're teaching in your workshops. Maybe for like summarizing a call or probably, prepping a QBR or something in that use case. How would you approach it?
Yeah, sure. So there are quite a few prompt frameworks out there, and it's very easy to access this kind of knowledge. There is even an OpenAI university that really gives you best practices of how to use different prompts. But something that I like a lot for the roles of customer success and even beyond that in go-to-market is a framework that's called Risen, RISEN. And it goes like this. The first section of your prompt is role. So define the role that the AI should assume. For example, act as an account executive with 20 years of experience. And then the I stands for instruction. Specify what you want the AI to do clearly. For example, and that's like a simplistic example, write an engaging email to a customer's executive, to a CMO, right? The S stands for steps. Outline the structure. Start with a personal intro, then discuss the content, the problem, suggested solution, and action items. And E goes for end goal. Clarify the objective because, if you have different goals, you're going to have very different results. So, for example, this person is not engaged, and my goal is to make them read through, see value, and schedule a call with me, right? And N goes for narrow. It's recommended sometimes to tell or an LM what not to do. Like don't sugarcoat it, don't make things up, or don't make it too long, right? So this is a framework that I typically use. Then it became kind of a second nature. It's not that I heard a question, doesn't it take more time to write a good prompt than it takes to just writing the email? So at first, maybe, yes, it takes practice, but then you just don't think about it anymore. And you know what? If you have a really good prompt with really good instructions, you can create a gem in Gemini or a custom GPT in GPT, and then this instruction will stay available for you and even for your team if you want, so you don't have to repeat it over and over again.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Risen, that's a great framework to actually model in terms of prompt engineering. I presume that will also be used across the board, right? It's not only for a specific use case.
Definitely, yeah. But again, there are many frameworks. I really recommend you read about them, you explore them, you find the ones that work for you.
All right, cool. And thank you for that tip. Thank you for sharing your framework. And let's go with staying relevant as an individual contributor because right as of the moment it goes to the also from the bottom up as we talk about and even from the top down we are talking about individual persons, individual contributors. And if there are like solopreneurs, there are also solo founders for starting up. And also even if they're not solo, it's still dealing with each unit of a business. So if we're talking about like CS reps, account managers, solo founders, how do you stay relevant and competitive as AI reshapes how we work?
Well, that's a great question, and I know it's been on a lot of people's minds. And there's a lot of fear out there. The big question stands out: will AI replace my job? And I think my message is always one of empowerment and not fear, because it's not really about being replaced. It's elevate. It's an opportunity really to elevate ourselves, to improve our skills. And I think that a key here is to stop focusing on the tasks that AI can do better, but really about moving beyond being a doer of tasks to a strategist, to be a strategist that leverages AI as a primary tool. And there is a kind of a skill matrix that I like to talk about of things that I recommend people evolve in themselves. And the first one is system thinking. And I talked about it briefly earlier. How do I solve not for one customer, but how do I solve for many? And the ability to see the whole kind of chessboard. How does my work connect with the sales team, with marketing, with product? How can this process help across the board? Then this is one step of becoming a go-to-market engineer, right? Seeing the full picture and try to solve for many. The second would be data curiosity. Start being curious about working with data. If you have a data team, a BI team, just start of a matrix and go and build a dashboard with them. Try to understand where the data comes from. Read about data strategy, data quality. I'm not saying that you need to learn, SQL tomorrow, right? But don't be afraid to work with data, because AI is just as good as your data. And knowing where information comes from, and if your data is accurate and working with data, is a big step forward. Also, AI literacy and automation literacy. There are so many very cool tools out there, and you have an opportunity as an individual contributor or any person at work, right, to not be afraid. Take a free course online, how to use tools like NA10 or Make, or how to even just use GPT better, or Gemini or Claude, or whatever the tool of your choice is, and start inviting AI to your table every day in everything you do, so you can practice prompting and just your AI skills as an individual. And finally, there is the ability to be a strategist, right? Strategy framing, which is the ability to connect your work and the AI's output, back to the big picture. So I found a trend. How do I use this to impact the team's goals? And present your work, present your success. So I think if you cultivate these skills, you're not just future-proofing yourself, you're making yourself stand out and more valuable and harder to replace, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. And if we're going to, I know that there were a few skills that you mentioned. What's the probably the top three critical skills that you think is the priority? Because like sometimes when you adapt into something, the enemy here is to become overwhelmed if it's too much. So if you were to kind of rank all those skills, like what's the top three, like the critical ones that you would start there, and that's like the must have at the beginning.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be my own ranking. LinkedIn just released the 2025 emerging skills result, and the number one on the list was AI literacy. So it wasn't me. It's LinkedIn said it. So I think start there, get curious about AI, know what's possible today with readily available tools, right? You don't need to learn neural networks now, right? Generative AI. And then I think also data. I think this is a big one. So data curiosity, AI literacy, which is also, it can combine also automation tools. Get curious there. I think and don't be afraid to experiment. That's what I would recommend as a bottom line.
All right. So one is AI literacy, second is data, and the third one was which? What was the third one?
I think just to it's a tip more than a skill. Yeah, get curious and start working with systems.
Curious.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
curiosity, experimentation. Start working with tools.
Okay. Okay. I was just kind of curious about how you kind of rank these three and out of the others. So it's going to be much more intentional for you and me and probably our audience as well, who's listening and watching this podcast. So we're going to talk about something more about like a one Monday morning move. Like if I'm a team leader and I want to take action this week, what's one concrete step I can take Monday morning to kickstart AI adoption to the team, myself? It could be top to down, up to bottom to up. What would that be? Can you paint a picture of what would be the best concrete steps?
Yeah, sure. Let's really cut through the noise and talk about the thing that you can do immediately if you have a team. So here's your task for the beginning of the week, a Monday morning action. So I would say start by really blocking a 15-minute slot with your team. Call it like a quick brainstorming or one question. And when you get on this meeting or call, I want you to, all I want you to do is ask this one simple question. If you had a magic wand and you could eliminate a single most repetitive, annoying, or frustrating task from your work week, what would it be? And then just shut up and listen. And I can assure you that you won't hear people say, I want to deploy a full-on machine learning system or again with a neural network, right? You'll hear them say, I hate spending an hour every Friday manually updating Salesforce, or I hate having to rewatch my calls just to pull out action items, right? And the beauty in this one question is that it really starts again with the pain, not with the technology. So you're instantly crowdsourcing your highest value, lowest complexity AI use cases directly from the people who will benefit the most. And the answer to the question will become your kind of bottom-up roadmap for the first AI quick win. And it's simple. I think it's very human-centered, and I can promise you that this is a very powerful way to begin.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That question has been kind of used a lot, but there's a reason for it because it gives you a little bit of clarity of what's that first step, what's the priority, what's the bigger things that we want to solve first, right? So I'm glad that you brought that question. I mean that kind of question because that's also a valuable thing for our audience and also for us to have a great reminder. So beautiful. And let's talk about like where to follow and what's next. Like it's more about like where can listeners follow your work, connect with you, or join one of your upcoming workshops or trainings. So where would that be?
So right now, the absolute best place to continue a conversation with me is on LinkedIn. You can just look me up, Sharon Amitai Eli. I'm very active there, and I try not to just post fluff. I want to share. It's important for me personally to share practical frameworks. Some of them we've talked about today: the value versus complexity grid, tips for prompting, thoughts on go-to-market engineering or different skills. and things that people can hopefully take and apply immediately in the world of customer success and go-to-market. And, I love connecting with people who are, in the trenches, doing the work and leading CS and go-to-market teams and trying to make sense of all of this changing world. So really don't hesitate to reach out. Currently, I'm being invited to lead workshops for teams in companies and do advisory for companies. I currently don't have any openly available workshops, but there are some things that are being planned, hopefully for the near future, that will be available online. So stay tuned.
All right, beautiful, Sharon. And this is, maybe we could add in some new kind of surprises in some of the questions. I'm curious about like what's one common AI myth that you love to debunk for customer service and go to market teams?
That it has to be complex. I think there are many things that you can really do and get value from immediately. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and it doesn't have to be complex. Using an LLM, using an enterprise license of a safe, right? Enterprise license of Google Gemini or GPT or Copilot, you can save a lot of time for your team and even do things that move the needle in terms of ARR.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's like mostly is either it's complex and the other one is the cost is
Exactly.
probably the common.
Mhm.
And okay, good. And if you had like 30 seconds to speak to every customer service leader in the world right now, what would you want to say?
Invest in AI literacy. Make sure that your team knows how to use AI in a high quality way and in a secure way. I have an example story actually that I can give if time permits. I led a workshop to a customer success team, and it was kind of a big company. I think close to 1,000 employees, mid-size, yeah. And they had a Gemini license, an enterprise Gemini license. And then when I stepped into the workshop, I realized that people did not know that they can actually they're permitted to use customers' data and companies' proprietary data in Gemini. They can, because when they have an enterprise license, there's data protection. It's all under Google Workspace data protection, but they haven't been using it. And then what they got is very generic responses from AI, and they couldn't drive value from AI because they didn't use customer data. They were afraid. And then I worked with them and I had a talk with their head of IT. I verified myself. I also surprised the head of IT with the fact that they can also use Notebook, another Google product. There is a part of Workspace. Super valuable, super, I think, underrated. But then he formally allowed the team to do that. Ever since they started using Gemini properly with the relevant context and grounding data from companies' products and customers, they started seeing a lot of value. So just in investing in AI literacy, what you can and cannot do, they got a lot of value. And by the way, people, even if you're afraid of letting people use AI as an organization, they use it anyway without you knowing. We call it shadow AI. And then they actually risk your data privacy more because they could use their personal accounts and upload customer data in there, which creates more risk than you want to take. So it's better to allow them to use AI and give these guardrails and guidelines, and then everyone is happier. So yeah, I think that's what I want everyone to hear.
Beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Sharon. And thank you, Sharon, for sharing your wisdom today. And this is FlowMax AI Podcast, and I'll see you on my next episode.
Thank you so much.